It was approximately 3:30 a.m. when Shauna Trapp returned home after a long shift at work. The streets were silent, and everything appeared normal as she drove into her garage. She went inside, likely anticipating some rest. However, someone was already there, concealed in the darkness. Moments later, something horrific occurred. By the time the sun rose, police had surrounded her home, and what the investigation revealed left everyone stunned. Born on March 13, 1966, in Salt Lake City, Shauna entered the world surrounded by snow-covered mountains and the traditions of a deeply established Mormon community. She was one of 7 children, and from an early age, Shauna distinguished herself through her creativity, often becoming absorbed in books or drawing delicate sketches of flowers. For her, school was about more than academics. With an energetic personality and natural charm, she became a cheerleader and was recognized for having a large circle of friends. During her teenage years, her family moved east, first to Pennsylvania and then to North Carolina, with each move strengthening her resilience and shaping her dream of building a life that was completely her own. That dream began to take shape in 1994, when, at 28 years old, Shauna made a bold decision. She left behind everything familiar and moved west to Las Vegas, a city filled with energy and constant reinvention. Las Vegas, the city of lights and luck, welcomed Shauna with its dazzling chaos. She started her new life working at a luxury department store, where her natural grace and warmth stood out in her interactions with customers. Later, she moved into the hospitality industry, first waiting tables at Fiesta Hotel, and eventually securing a sought-after position at the prestigious Palms Casino Resort. There, among the glamour and high-stakes clientele, Shauna flourished. Her co-workers became like family, and her job provided her with both fulfillment and financial security. Shauna had a radiant presence, with sun-blonde hair, an elegant sense of style, and a poised figure that drew attention. But it was not her appearance that attracted people to her. It was her natural kindness, her lively laugh, and the way she sincerely connected with others. Friends described her as energetic, optimistic, and devoted. She was someone who found magic in everyday moments. In 2002, Shauna's life changed once again when she met George Trapp. He was tall, athletic, and confident, the kind of man who made a strong first impression. His background was impressive. He had been a standout high school football player and from King, a graduate of United States Military Academy, and later a U.S. Army engineer who became a firefighter. He had a magnetic presence and a compassionate heart, and he was known for helping others, including financially supporting his mother, who was the primary caregiver for his disabled sister. Their connection was instant and powerful. Friends and family admired how effortlessly they complemented each other. Two ambitious, charismatic individuals who appeared destined to be together. Their love grew even stronger with the birth of their daughter, Madison. For Shauna, motherhood became everything. She cherished Madison, spending hours singing karaoke, laughing, and creating memories that felt everlasting. On March 16, 2006, Shauna and George solidified their love with a beachside wedding in Hawaii. The ceremony, framed by ocean waves and gentle breezes, felt like a storybook ending. But beneath the beauty, difficulties were already emerging. 2 years into their marriage, cracks began to appear. The 2008 housing market crash affected George severely, and the financial strain sent shockwaves through their relationship. Shauna's love of spending conflicted with George's desire to save. Disagreements that had once been minor escalated into frequent and heated arguments. George's frustration transformed into something darker. He grew increasingly possessive, critical, and distant. His harsh remarks were even more painful when spoken in front of Madison. Adding to the tension was George's growing connection with Noel Stevens, a homeless man he had brought into their lives to assist with yard work. George had always felt compassion for the disadvantaged, but Shauna never trusted Stevens. His constant presence unsettled her, widening the emotional rift in their home. As the months went by, the strain between Shauna and George became increasingly heavy until the bond that had once held them together finally broke. After nearly 10 years together, Shauna made the painful decision to leave the relationship, taking their daughter Madison with her. She relocated to a quiet suburban community just outside Las Vegas, hoping that space and distance would bring clarity. Although she had stepped away, Shauna had not completely given up. Divorce was not yet an option. Her heart still held fragments of hope. Perhaps, with time and counseling, they could find a way back to each other. Both she and George agreed to attend marriage counseling. It was a final effort to preserve what remained. However, while the sessions offered moments of reflection, they could not close the emotional gap. Shauna and George continued to live apart. The longer they remained separated, the more difficult it became to envision reconciliation. By September 2012, Shauna's optimism had faded. The future she had once imagined felt increasingly distant with each passing day. Then something unexpected occurred, something that would shatter any remaining sense of security. One evening, Shauna returned home from work to discover her house in complete disarray. Someone had broken in. Her possessions were scattered, drawers had been rummaged through, and important personal items were missing. An engagement ring, underwear, a bikini, and a black dress were gone. Even more unsettling, the intruder had left a small folded pair of boxers on the washing machine and had helped themselves to vodka from the refrigerator. It was a violation that shook Shauna to her core. This did not feel like a random burglary. It felt deeply personal. Though shaken, she attempted to carry on, focusing on her work and caring for Madison. Yet the sense of unease never fully left her. In the early hours of September 29, 2012, Shauna finished her shift at the casino, clocking out at precisely 3:01 a.m. She walked through the employee exit and stepped into the Las Vegas night. She slipped into her car for the familiar 30-minute drive back to her home. It was a journey she had made countless times before, but this one would be her last. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Shauna arrived home. She drove into the garage and entered through the interior door. As she made her way toward the staircase, she never noticed the attacker waiting in the shadows. A sudden, violent strike to the head with a hammer sent her crashing to the floor. The attack continued, unrelenting and silent. The assailant spoke nothing, even as Shauna begged for her life, crying, bewildered, and desperate. "Why are you doing this?" she asked repeatedly. There was no answer. Blow after blow fell. When her body finally went motionless, the killer fled, exiting through the same garage door that Shauna had used. He took the hammer with him. A few hours later, shortly after 9 a.m., George finished his shift at the fire station. As he often did when Shauna worked late, he went to pick up Madison from his mother's house. Shauna and George shared custody, and Madison was scheduled to spend a few days with her father. George went to Shauna's home to pick up some of Madison's belongings. But as he neared the house, something immediately felt wrong. The garage door was open. Shauna had always been careful. She never left the garage open overnight. That single detail sent a wave of dread through George. As he entered the house, his worst fears were realized. The interior was in disarray. Evidence of a struggle was evident. And then he saw her. Shauna lay motionless on the floor, blood pooling around her. George called 911, telling the dispatcher that he had found his wife and that she was not moving. His voice was composed, almost unnervingly so, though there were moments when his words wavered and his thoughts seemed to pause. He also spoke of Madison, who was with him, and asked if he could take their daughter to his mother's house. When first responders arrived, they were confronted with a scene of horror. A woman lay motionless on the floor, covered in blood, the house in complete disarray. The sheer brutality of the attack stunned investigators. Shauna had sustained catastrophic injuries to her head, so severe that paramedics initially thought they were dealing with a gunshot wound. However, closer forensic examination revealed a different reality. The strikes had been inflicted with a blunt instrument, unrelenting and forceful. Her hands were torn and bruised, bearing the marks of defensive wounds. She had fought back. In her final moments, she displayed extraordinary courage. Detectives initially focused on George, following standard protocol in domestic homicide cases. Those closest to the victim are always questioned first. However, George had a verified alibi.
He had just completed a 24-hour shift at the fire station, something verified by both his co-workers and supervisors. With that possibility ruled out, investigators shifted their focus in a different direction. The murder deeply shook Shauna's circle of friends and colleagues. Many of them worked similar late-night shifts at the Palms Casino Resort. If you're finding this video engaging, consider subscribing to my channel.
The randomness of the attack, its brutality, and the break-in weeks earlier left many feeling vulnerable and fearful. Some began to wonder whether someone had been watching them as well. Was this a random act of violence, or something far more deliberate? Detectives revisited the break-in at Shauna's home just 3 weeks prior. That earlier incident had shaken her deeply. Personal items had been taken: underwear, a bikini, her engagement ring, while a peculiar pair of men's boxers had been left behind, carefully folded on the washing machine. It had never appeared to be a typical burglary, and now that detail seemed even more ominous. A break occurred when neighbors reported hearing loud rhythmic thuds between 3:30 and 4 a.m. on the morning of Shauna's murder. The timing corresponded with her arrival, indicating she had been assaulted within minutes of entering. Shortly after, another piece of evidence emerged. Along a trail near the Willowbrook Apartments, approximately half a mile from her residence, Shauna's personal items were discovered discarded. Her cell phone, health card, and makeup were among the items. This implied that the perpetrator had fled on foot in that direction. Then a name emerged. William Big Will Penix was a well-known figure in the Las Vegas community, a handyman who also mentored recently released inmates. One of these individuals, a man known by the nickname Hart, had delivered a chilling confession. In a disturbingly nonchalant manner, Hart recounted how he had assaulted a woman with a hammer. He even smiled as he recounted how the hammer eventually broke from the force. At first, Big Will did not know what to make of it. But when he observed the news coverage regarding Shauna's murder, something clicked. The particulars matched. He immediately reached out to authorities. He informed police that Hart frequently lingered around a local Albertsons, scavenging and selling drugs. Across the street, at a Chevron gas station, he was known to conduct regular deals. That was the location where officers located him. The arrest occurred quickly. Hart was found to have narcotics in his possession. He provided his real name, Noel Stevens. It was not the first occasion his name had surfaced. Stevens had a prior record, including petty theft, drug charges, and squatting. But now he was a suspect in a murder. During questioning, he denied any involvement in Shauna's death, but acknowledged that he had been residing in a tent on a remote hill approximately 8 miles from the Strip. Police were concerned that he might have concealed evidence there. They deployed helicopters to survey the area and conducted a search of his camp. They did not have to search for long. Inside the tent, investigators located a pair of pants stained with blood. Forensic analysis confirmed their worst fears. It belonged to Shauna. The walls of the case were tightening. Yet one question remained: why her? The answer surfaced from digital records. Phone data disclosed a shocking development. Stevens had maintained frequent contact with George. The man Shauna had once loved, the father of her child, had connections to her killer. Their relationship ran deeper and darker. George had employed Stevens for various odd jobs around the house. But beyond that, he had allegedly manipulated him, taking advantage of his vulnerabilities and desperation. For only $600, George set a plan in motion to end his wife's life. From the outset, Shauna's sister, Paula, had expressed her suspicions. Despite George's seemingly airtight alibi, she never accepted that he was innocent. She traveled to Las Vegas to assist with the investigation, convinced that something far more sinister had occurred behind closed doors. That intuition proved chillingly accurate. Police conducting a search of Stevens's campsite uncovered incriminating evidence: stolen clothing from Shauna's earlier break-in, and a vodka bottle containing his DNA. The bottle corresponded to the one used during the burglary weeks prior to her murder. Nearby, a cardboard packaging tag matched a hammer, one of the weapons employed in the assault.
Surveillance footage soon confirmed it. George and Stevens were seen together at a hardware store. They looked relaxed, even laughing as they bought a hammer, gloves, and a knife. What once seemed like a random act now clearly pointed to premeditation. Faced with the growing evidence, Stevens eventually confessed. According to his statement, George had given him $600 upfront, with the promise of several thousand more once the job was finished.
For weeks, the two had meticulously planned the murder. Phone records corroborated the confession. 87 calls between them in September 2012, 5 of which occurred the night prior to the killing. Stevens stated that George provided keys to Shauna's house and even suggested wearing black and casing the house in advance. On the night of September 29th, Stevens entered the house, concealed himself in a closet, and waited. As Shauna ascended the stairs, he emerged from the shadows. Wearing a ski mask, he struck her with a hammer. When the handle broke, he used the steel head to complete the act. Then, he disappeared into the night. Stevens subsequently guided investigators to the burial site where he had disposed of the murder weapon, still bearing Shauna's blood. On October 8th, detectives visited George's family to notify them that he was now the primary suspect. The news shocked his mother and sister, who refused to believe he could be capable of such a crime. Yet the pressure fractured George. Upon learning that police were closing in, he drove recklessly through Las Vegas, crashing his car into a concrete barrier. There were no skid marks, no indication of braking. Authorities believed it was an attempted suicide. He survived the crash while wearing his seatbelt, and at the hospital, George was taken into custody. Both George and Noel Stevens were formally charged with murder. Stevens entered a guilty plea and testified against George in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. He received a sentence of 42 years to life. George's trial commenced in August 2015. Stevens became the prosecution's central witness, despite his troubled history, including prior drug use and ongoing mental health challenges. On the witness stand, he depicted a manipulative friendship. George, according to Stevens, constantly complained about Shauna, expressing anger over her spending and bitterness regarding their failing marriage. When George initially suggested eliminating Shauna, Stevens dismissed it with laughter. However, when the offer increased to $5,000, he agreed. In reality, Stevens only received the original $600. He later pawned Shauna's engagement ring, the same one that had been stolen during the prior break-in. He also disclosed that George had insisted on a hammer with a fiberglass handle, claiming that a wooden one might break.
Surveillance footage confirmed that both men had bought the tools together. During the attack, the original fiberglass hammer had already been taken by police in another case, forcing Stevens to use a wooden one, which eventually broke. At trial, the defense tried to discredit Stevens by highlighting his past, addictions, and mental health struggles, claiming the tools were meant for simple home repairs. But the evidence told a different story. Footage, phone records, blood traces, and timelines all pointed to a carefully planned murder. The prosecution portrayed George as a controlling man unable to handle personal and financial failures. Despite some support from family, the court found him guilty of first-degree murder in 2015, sentencing him to life in prison. His later appeal, blaming medications and legal failures, was denied. In the end, the deepest impact was on Shauna's daughter, who now lives with her grandmother. Out of tragedy, Shauna's family created a campaign to raise awareness about domestic abuse. Behind control and silence, danger can grow unnoticed. This story reminds us that manipulation and unchecked anger can destroy lives. But truth, no matter how hidden, eventually comes to light.